I know you're a bit exhausted, but I think we're moving from what to why and solutions. And I think this is the part I think it's more interesting what we can do jointly together. And this is practicality. I think I would like you to ask right now to write one thought that you have at this moment. So a question, a comment, a reflection for yourself. If not on the card, at least on your smartphone and tablets that you are using to browse the net right now. So, and then we'll take some of those to build up, you know, further probably solutions and thoughts, because what is a theme that I've seen in all the presentations since this morning, that there is no small thing that we should not use as an opportunity. Every little solution will count. Every minute of delay saved will count. So all these small initiatives, but also the big initiatives, are those that has been presented by Răzvan, will make the life difference in summer. So just take 5 minutes or 2 minutes or 3 minutes, we'll pause, write one card.
Well, I raised the same question at the ANSPs. What about an MRAT relaxation due severe weather? How do you cope with that?
We have this was coming as one of the questions that we had from the airspace users in the discussions last week on the measures. First of all, we have looked into some of the behaviors of last year, because the analysis was much more detailed than what I could go quickly here. We have looked into the behaviors and some of the routes used last year by the airspace users, and it was clear that in some cases and in some days, some routes were used clearly for weather avoidance. And what we wanted to make sure is that we do not block absolutely all the options whenever it would be a need to go around based on the routes that we have seen last year, whenever weather avoidance is required. If there is a significant problem, of course, we are going to weather or any other type of problem. Of course, the RAD in some areas will be suspended if required. But we will come exactly to the same issue that was mentioned earlier. What about the routes that are going to be already hard coded in the flight planning systems? But that issue we had it last year, last summer, we had it before. We made sure that in the vast majority of cases, several options remain available for flight planning based on what we have seen as flight plans last year. Because we were wondering why, in some cases, some flights went as they went. But when you look into more details, it was clearly that these were days with severe weather, and there was a weather avoidance on those routes. Because the routes were much longer in some cases, and we were wondering why the shorter option was not taken.
Yeah, but based on the flights from last year and the things I've seen for coming year, we have from Amsterdam to several stations, we only have one route available. So there is no possibility without relaxation of the RAD to avoid severe weather. So there must be a clear procedure what happens if a request comes from an airline that this route should be cancelled and that we have other options to fly.
As I've said, we have discussed last week, and this has been taken into consideration. In addition, there were some very specific requirements from you on a number of aircraft types, and those will be also taken into consideration in the preparation of the RAD restrictions. We will need to see how we can address those concerns on some particular aircraft types to make sure that you will not encounter any problems if this city pair would be operated by a specific aircraft type. So all that is included in the. There was a very good feedback from the airlines, to be honest, and a large part of this feedback has been included into the output, I would say.
Yes, Raphael from Air France. Regarding the measure for this summer, I quote you, Răzvan, you said it's almost an European airspace reorganization. How are the CFSPs included? Do we have a simulation environment where we could see that everything that will be decided and accorded will work on the 26th of April, and that we don't end up in all our OCC with a huge workload for the whole summer. That was the first question. And the second question, it's, I will emphasize is also what Martin is saying. I think we should go further down the way regarding how could we relax the RAD, and especially it should be also at this time a discussion between both the ANSP, not both, but between the ANSP, between the NM, the AOs, and of course the CFSPs. Because anytime we have RAD relaxation, at the end of the day, it's very difficult for my flight dispatcher to plan it because we are blocked. So I think we need to establish a clear process that will work for everybody, and it should be done from my point of view at the network level.
Yeah, the answer on the first question is as follows. I was insisting on the fact that we will do all possible to have the measures ready, finalized, and published around 28th of February, in order that you will have those measures in your hands. Now, and we will do a good communication process. We will use our colleagues from the Airspace Users Associations to promulgate to the largest possible extent all this information to make sure that it reaches each and every airline, each and every CFSP. Now, what I know would have been good to have is in the NM systems a simulation environment where you could test all this and where you could see if what you are planning will work or will not work. But unfortunately, this would not be possible from a technical point of view for summer 2019. This is a requirement that hopefully at a certain point in time will be implemented to be able to provide you in advance with 2 ERAC cycles, basically, the information in a sort of a test environment so that you are able to start testing it, preparing flight plans, etc., to increase the automation in the preparation, in this strategic planning phase of the preparation. But what we will try to do is they will be available, those measures anyhow on the NO portal, on the normal RAD website, but we will do everything else that is possible to promulgate those measures. It is more or less a similar answer to the second question, I think, where we will have a much better, much more increased automation, a B2B on which each and every information is exchanged, and the ability of the airspace users and or the CFSPs to change in a much more flexible manner the routes, as many airline colleagues are saying, those are hard-coded. They are company routes for each day of the week. They do not change, etc., etc. So hopefully there will be a moment in time where this dynamicity of the network that is so much required will be possible to be taken into account also from a flight planning point of view. Because we were drawing you the attention also about the possibility to bring even more flexibility in the civil-military utilization of the airspace, where hopefully we will be able to have much more synchronized utilization of the military airspace and be able to unlock some capacity there. But how is this going to work from a flight planning point of view if a short-term reaction will not be possible? Because if the routes are hard-coded, then how are you taking into account the AUP, the UUP? It's the same like with the RAD, because there is no point then to publish a UUP if the routes are hard-coded, because they will never be changed. It's the same like relaxing the RAD.
Thank you, Razvan. Thank you for the details.
Just a quick correction. For us, routes are not hard-coded. We are using random routing, so we try to take as much as possible the opportunities. But we are stuck with the other side of the problem that with having random routing, when you have a big change like the one that will arrive in April, I think that probably if we don't test in advance in collaboration with NM, INSP, and CFSP, we risk to end up in a lot of creative flight planning on the 26th of April. And this is what I don't want to be either for the network or for my pilot or my ops people.
Now, there is another point that I would like to make there. Yeah, we are talking about the number of RAD restrictions for 25th of April. How many RAD restrictions do you have every ERAC cycle? Changes? Too many, exactly. But this is another story. Let's not repeat the RAD workshop that we had at the end of last year, because there will be actions being taken in that direction also. But we are going to look into this ERAC 2504, 25th of April, because first of all, given the fact that a lot of ANSPs will have to publish something, we are going to look if something else is required actually to be published. And you see, this is a network approach. We are going to publish those as network measures, and we will look what is actually essentially required to have the protection measures implemented. We are not going to publish useless RAD restrictions that will overlap with other RAD restrictions. So there will be a check of what is going to come on the 25th of April, so I would be less worried about the number of changes on that ERAC cycle, because you might see much less than we have during other cycles. And then this is why we have also this this review meeting by mid-May, because we want to see very quickly. But of course, we are not going to wait until mid-May. If we see problems on the flight planning and so on, of course, that will come immediately back to you. But we would like to see how that, not only how this has worked from a protection point of view of the sectors, but how this has worked with the airspace users, and if there is no need to change something because you can't do this, you can't do that, etc., etc. So this review meeting in mid-May will have several facets, not only the protection aspect of the measures, because we need to, as the peak of the summer starts, we need to have stability in the network to avoid that flight plans are going in all directions.
Jeff, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, I think, Rafa, you've covered nearly every single point I wanted to say then, so I just want to echo all of that. I don't know about the other AOs in the room, but this makes me very nervous to hear that it's what do we say, a complete redesign of the European network as an ARAC cycle. The ARAC cycles are busy enough, let alone for the whole for the whole network. We've only got to look back at, what was it, a year ago, 2 years ago, when Italy changed in an ARAC cycle, and that hangover lasted for the best part of a year. So I think the creative routes you'll be seeing a lot longer than the 26th of April. One question I would ask is, has a staggered approach been looked at? Obviously, we all know the summer's coming fast, but is this something that all has to be switched on the same day?
We have looked into that. A staggered approach would have brought much more RAD restrictions, actually. Because if you start doing it in steps, you will need to do them in such a way that the next ERAC cycle you will not need to change once again those that you have done before. And actually that would have resulted in a much larger number of RAD restrictions, because then you will have had to put them everywhere to achieve the level of protection that you actually want. I can just reassure you, you should not be worried. It will not be, I can give you examples of much bigger ERAC cycles. Now, the 28th of February, now it's a big one, with quite significant airspace changes, because we have Poland, we have the Polish free route airspace, we have the implementation with Maastricht, Karlsruhe, then Swedish RAB. This is a big one. 25th of April, with those RAD measures, I can reassure you, it will be probably slightly lower than a normal RAD what you see as a normal rut changes each and every EROC cycle. But my point about the redesign of the airspace was that all this effort that has been put in that to mitigate the capacity issues would have been nice to put it into the clear redesign of the airspace, because we really had to touch all the flows. But I just reassure you, I think EROC 28th of February will be bigger than EROC 25th of April in terms of quantity of work.
Jenny?
Just to add on what Razvan said, so the creation of any RAD restriction is a time-consuming work for the environment guys. So we are talking about how many RAD restriction? 250 that has to be tested. So it's a huge effort, and then once created, then at the end it's not really easy to understand what is wrong, particularly when I don't want to create panic, but if that has been already assessed, we have to test the plan all at once. We could not have done a staggered approach. It would have been much difficult for our staff. It would have been almost impossible to understand what is getting wrong. Instead, all at once, we see what is the effect on the network, the delay saving, the amount of delay that is generated, what is left to be regulated by some other ANSP, and that I think the post-op analysis will be done in May, if I'm not mistaken. So.
And the other thing is, we are talking here about you know, a major axis rerouting. So when I'm talking about this flow in both directions, Turkey, Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary, Austria, Germany, or Austria, Hungary, Slovakia, Czech Republic, etc. On such a flow, in order to be able to shift this flow to the east, that in terms of route distance will be shorter, and in terms of cost of the route will be cheaper. So from a benefit point of view, this is a positive move, I would say. But in order to shift such a major flow, we will need to see where we will have to best place the RAD restrictions in order that this flow is shifted. If this would be left at several EROC cycles to move such a flow, what could you say? Okay, Romania and Hungary, we will put first the RAD restrictions for you, and then the next EROC cycle for the others. You would not have get the effect of the shifting of the flows, actually. The fact that they are network restrictions, probably we will find a very good solution to keep the operational principle of shifting the flow, but not putting RAD restrictions all over the place. We will have to be very careful. First of all, we need to keep the protection effects. That shift of the flow is not necessarily protecting the sectors with problems. It's protecting the sectors that are going to be unloaded with the traffic coming from the sectors with problems, because we have to shift twice, basically, to shift to empty the space in the middle, move the flights there, and what you have to appreciate also in this is the financial impact of all this in terms of you know, a free distribution of the revenue. That is quite interesting. But okay, that luckily was not so much part of the discussion in the vast majority of the cases, just in a very few cases, and it's a good thing that we could put that aside and concentrate on the operational problems.
Thank you for all the notes that are coming in. So we'll try to summarize a bit, and then I will start reading the one that we can be answered today, some that can be related tomorrow for automation, making more business to business, more, our system needs to be more automatically designed. But let's take one or two more questions live, and then we go back to the cards. Yes, in the back, Jens. Yeah. Let's take first.
Okay,
Scandinavia, and then we move there.
Very quick question, last one. Are the RAD restrictions going to be sector-based, or it's going to be, more detailed, that we have to follow specific airways or specific waypoints, or how is it built up the RADs? Could we maybe have I imagine a little bit this is going to be like a scenario or something like that, just put in as a RAD restriction. And usually for scenario we also have a map showing what to do actually. Is it the same here? Could we have a supporting map per regulation just to support the flight planning so we get the RAD restrictions in the correct way?
It's a very good idea, actually. We can look into that, because most of the maps are done already, and I'm encouraging you to go and see John, Melik, and Robert out there, because you will see them. They are a little bit of everything, I must say. There will be restrictions that will be sector-based. There will be restrictions that will be point-based. There will be restriction asking the traffic to follow a certain route at a certain point in time. There will be a little bit of everything, depending on the on the nature of the problem to be sorted out.
Thanks, Russ.
But go outside. All the measures, they how to say, they go one after the other on the screens there. And if you are interested in any particular ones, my colleagues will help. And most probably from either from Carlo or from Nick or from whoever else was participating in the meeting, all the slides are available with all the measures and the maps showing the reroutings. So they are already available.
Stans.
Yes, Jens, I just like to give you a hint, because we went to all the measures which affected us. RUT measure per measure, which are on the table now, and we try to assess the fuel impact and the time impact to validate the impact. And now I'd like to come to my question, which refers basically to the transparency about your network manager business case, which I'd like to come to, which I would appreciate it, appreciate for Lufthansa, and I expect EasyJet, Air France, and all the other AOs would appreciate as well, that we receive a kind of transparency in what is your business case behind it. And the other point which I'd like to mention is what you said, okay, we'd like to have a view in May on the impact, because a first assessment, let's say in May, a first assessment, because we are curious about, let's say if the Lufthansa short-haul operation is underneath the most impacted airspace, which is Karlsruhe, and also the saturated airspace Maastricht. And we expect also for the level capped area where our city pairs are in now, and the fuel impact is probably today measurable, but the delay impact is for us kind of suspicious, because this is in your database, and you talked already about your simulation, which you'd like to have, is not available yet, but this is we are curious about, and we'd like to have also, and I would rather say we must have an indication in May what is the impact, because as we already heard, a redesign of the airspace, our flight times, block times change tremendously for some city pairs. And we don't calculate additional ATC buffers in real times, because when we file a flight plan, we file the real-time flight plan. We don't have any kind of buffers or hidden times in that. We operate from main ACDM airports. We have a complete transparency about taxi times at these airports, because all of them are in the system. Let's say at the end of the day, from your point of view about the data, we are completely transparent what kind of impact it has on our flights. And we rather expect this transparency also putting into account about this assessment about the business case, because this is also what our management expects, that they count on the network approach, and that they can count on the benefit for all of us.
So, Razvan, in summary, transparency, simulations, and business case.
As I've said, the first business case will be prepared in about 2 weeks' time to show both capacity and flight efficiency benefits. To be honest, until we had all, the measures agreed, this is a very complex putting together. So we didn't want to go into that without having in the detail of the detail, without having a fair idea that 95% of the things have been agreed. So that will be done. Now, what you have to look into, and I'm again encouraging you either to look in the slides that have been distributed to everybody, or to look there to see of the number of flights impacted actually by those measures. And you will find, with quite a surprise, that except this shift at the southeast that I'm insisting is beneficial, where we are talking about roughly 250 flights being impacted in both directions, but on an average 4 nautical miles shorter and in cheaper airspace. On all the others, the number of flights captured compared to how the traffic developed last year is not so high. And why it is not so high? Because you have already operated like this last year. Because the problem areas that had to be avoided last year anyhow. So that solution, you found it last year and you have flight planned it last year. And that's why sometimes it's surprising, because some ACCs were telling us in the discussions, but it's impossible. It's not only that number of flights. The flow is much bigger. Said, yes, but it was already there. So we are talking here only about the extra flights that we are going to add into those sectors. So those flows already operate. A large amount of those flights already operated like that last year. And it was clear from a number in the discussions that we have with many NSPs that actually the RAD measure is there just more like a predictability measure to make sure that the vast majority, that the flights will operate like that. Because on some major city pairs, we are finding 1 or 2 flights only. That would be subject, that were not flying like that last year, let's say. So compared to last year, I'm not saying that last year was a fantastic year, but compared to last year, the difference should not be very very big. It is positive if we succeed to put in place the reroutings on the southeast axis. To be honest, that would be a positive outcome. It would actually, this should have been a development from the very beginning, but there were other problems there in the Black Sea corner there.
The last reaction from Lufthansa, and then we go back to the operators, please.
Okay.
Lufthansa.
One additional question for another topic which basically is related to this.
Go ahead.
We are in a deep process and intensive process to introduce free route airspace in a moment in a lot of countries in Central Europe. We're putting a lot of effort also to make it work in IT systems and with our procedures. You mentioned in your presentation, okay, we will see this impact which we face now for summer 19, 20, 21, and so on and so on. For me, the question is, what forum or what place is it to mention that free route airspace introduction in course of the regulation of the PCP in a moment and according to the schedule which is mentioned in the PCP will not happen in Central Europe. Because we discussed outside on the floor for a lot of city pairs, and also Raphael and others mentioned, okay, we will have for a lot of city pairs just one route available to increase predictability, and this is from us not free route airspace anymore. In addition, we are with these measures are in an airspace structure which we not expected for the optimization of these free routes. We don't come in free route airspace anymore. I'd like to at least to have a kind of statement from your side. What do you think where this fact, the given fact for the upcoming years, is dropped and it is incorporated in the further thinking? Because I will participate on the 13th of April in a free route airspace workshop with SDM, which they invited to, and I'd like to also, from our point of view, to give also an indication, okay, this is now what we will foresee. And not a wide discussion, just an indication, okay, how we can go for this.
Short statement, Rosa.
first of all, the vast majority of the rerouting measures that we are talking about and the sectors with problems are not in free route airspace. Let's be crystal clear. They are not in free route airspace. Yeah? They are not in airspace where free route airspace has been implemented. Yeah? Number one, the fact that we have to shift flows from the airspace where free route airspace has been implemented and works perfectly is because we need to make space in this airspace to move the other flows. Because otherwise there wouldn't be space. Yeah? Because you like flying through the sexy FRA, through this, through that. Thirdly, the potential that the free route gave us to look into the reroutings was much more significant than if we would have had a fixed route network. So even in this dreadful situation, I would say, free route is rather helping than being an obstacle. Again, look on the map where the problem areas are, and tell me which is the exact plan for the free route implementation in that part. Okay. And there I might agree on the date with you. There I might agree on the date. But okay, this is another story. And we hope we have quite good news, for instance, from ENAIRE on how they intend to move with the free route airspace, because this has been found as being a very good idea and project. I've just got the reports from my colleagues who were there this week, this morning. So it's moving now. So go for it, use it, move on the, on the full utilization of it is actually bringing more benefits than constraints. And all the rerouting measures, all the sectors with problems are not in free route airspace. I'm sorry.
Let's do Lot and then we go to the SNA.
Okay, first of all, sorry if this question was already answered, but I was doing my homework, so maybe I've overlooked. Referring to KLM question, if we have situation, we have only one route available, and we have the thunderstorm wall going exactly across the route, do you foresee possibility for us to call IFPS and said, I have to file the flight plan? I'm not talking about the cancellation of the route restriction, but acceptance by your staff, the route against the route, just to avoid the danger, yeah? Just to fly through.
Everything is possible if there is coordination, but let's not abuse it, and let's try to do it in an organized manner. And any help that could come from your side also in changing those flight plans, because normally when we have a route that is being cancelled, this is promulgated immediately, and you know that this route has been cancelled. So if something could be done from your side, not only from our side, that would be very helpful. That would be very helpful also.
Of course, but I cannot cancel route. I see the problem. I have the solution, but solution is against the route.
But in case we cancel the route, in case that we cancel the route.
No, I've said it isn't the case when the route was cancelled.
That can be forced at any time by agreement with the local FMP. That is okay. That is okay, but don't abuse.
Oh. DSNA?
It's just a quick answer to the EAO of the nature of the RAD coming to them in April. At least for the French part, we're aiming mainly on a sector-based restriction, which works best in IFPS for us, and level capping restriction. I know that sector-based is not a good thing for the EAO, so what we're aiming to is to provide in the operational goal of the restrictions the available routing outside of the protected area for you to be able to find the solution, one of the solution. So that's, I think, one of the best thing we can do for you.
Thank you. I think we might just open a Pandora box asking you to write a good statement and questions. I don't know where to start first. Mattis has a lot of them. With your permission, those related to the systems improvement, changes, automation, allow more automation, I think we can defer them tomorrow. We have a full session on that with Idalina, with Juan, and with JP. Mattis, can I ask you to start with yours, and then I read one of mine?
Thank you. Use this one. So that's an easy one, I think, for Johnny. What is the staffing level in NMOC in summer 2019? Any new staff? Question mark.
Yes, there are competitions that are ongoing for 5 new network operation controllers that are all those who are in contact with the FMPs. We have also internal competitions to move people from IFPS in other domains, namely pre-tactical and tactical, and there are 3 network operation specialists. Again, I will show tomorrow with the slide. I think that maybe we can leave more time for other questions, but I have a slide tomorrow on all the changes that we are going to implement before the summer. More flexibility, basically more staff, more staffing supporting the help desk and automation and all the stuff. But it's better I do that with the slide because otherwise I will take 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Gianni. I'll snap one, maybe Razvan. Why Cyprus is not part of the organization? Cyprus is not part of the organization.
There was no requirement to reroute any traffic flows in Cyprus. With Cyprus and Israel, we have another project. It is an airspace redesign project there. It's a pure airspace redesign project. At the entire Nicosia and Tel Aviv FIRs, including their interfaces. A real-time simulation is taking place as we speak in Bretigny to simulate the airspace of Tel Aviv FIR, and we are in final discussions with our colleagues from Cyprus on the acceptance of minor change in the project that hopefully will come at the latest by Friday this week, and then we will start moving ahead with the implementation that is expected to be prior to this summer. So, but Cyprus is not impacted by those reroutings. The effect doesn't go so far. But they are with this airspace project. They have a lot to do with the airspace project.
Thanks. Matis?
Okay, I have one which is probably addressed to the ANSPs in the House. Are there any works ongoing to make controller 2, 3 or 4 ACCs away from the problematic sector aware about the reason for a specific flight plan filed and adherence to this flight plan, so no higher flight level clearance given, for example?
We have this was one of the points that I wanted to raise last week in the meeting, and I have my good neighbor and friend and colleague here, Holger, who sent us quite a good amount of information on what DFS has done in this respect. We have received information also from Maastricht. I'm still showing in that direction because Maastricht was sitting there. I need to show now in that direction last week. So we have received good information from Maastricht and CAS and DFS on what they have done last year in that respect, and we will initiate with my colleagues Chris Baumann and Boris Radovanovic some work in that direction to promulgate as much as possible this type of information, to build on the experience of DFS of Maastricht, to make this awareness as much as possible. Now, life is life. But we hope at least those ACCs and those ANSPs who are actually, for whom those measures are being done, that they are going to be the first ones to respect this, so that the immediately neighboring ANSPs who are going to take additional traffic will not suffer. But there were already good actions taken last year in DFS, but there were also some lessons learned from DFS last year, just to give as an example.
Okay, I'll go quickly for another one, which is an interesting one. It said, and I think it relates with the presentation that we saw from Lisbon, where the available slots are close to midnight, before the curfew. So have DNM analyzed the usage of available capacity, is the availability during nights, and consequently did NM negotiate it with the AOs the adaptation of the business seasonal plans to the available capacities?
Not to that level of detail, but of course with each individual airline on each individual airport curfew. But we have sent a lot of comments back to the ANSPs on the opening schemes. There is a very strange effect that has happened in 2018, there was an abnormal traffic flow late afternoon and continuing till late nights. And in all the discussions that we had and in all the comments when we had the reaction, the automatic reaction is we need more sectors in the evening. Not necessarily, because that was traffic that was delayed. And this is why there was this big traffic. So we hope that now, with the new sector opening schemes that we get, and plus the measures that we are talking, that we are not going to get into such situations where the curfews will start to be impacted. But that has been taken into consideration when looking at the sector opening schemes.
Thanks, Raz. Batis?
Yes, I have two which I bring together because they're closely related. How is Eurocontrol preparing for Brexit, and what effects can we expect if there is a no-deal Brexit, which is possible and it's only a number of days away?
Crystal ball, Raz. Jay?
United Kingdom is a Eurocontrol member state, so we don't see necessarily, from that point of view, an impact. Now, it is very difficult to see which would be the impact in terms of traffic development and of demand. Now, I don't want to enter into the long list of details about traffic rights, bilateral agreements, and things like that. I think nobody can give a perfect answer to that until we see precisely what is the agreement about. There are other topics that I've seen left and right. We should not forget that the United Kingdom, their neighbors, they are all ICAO member states, that we have in Eurocontrol EU and non-EU member states, and that possibilities to have ATS delegation agreements, to have all sorts of agreements, are currently absolutely possible under the existing ICAO framework. So I don't see other major issues except the more traffic demand related aspects. This last year we have seen the total traffic increase in the UK was 0.9%, if I remember well. It was not fantastic, it was not a very high traffic growth, but to be honest, that was happening a little bit in the northwest corner in general. So whether it is a more geographical thing or it has a relation with Brexit, I don't know.
Okay, I have one which is probably operational and technical one. How it will be addressed, the traffic flow pattern to from the Middle East and Far East crossing Udros-Odero area as a consequence of multiple RAD measures?
This is one of the traffic flows that will be discussed during the meeting in mid-February. This is the traffic flow that, if moved, will have flight efficiency and cost benefits for the airspace users. This is where we are talking about roughly 200 plus flights to be shifted. For the ones who are not necessarily familiar with those points, we have two pairs of points there that over which the intention is to redistribute the traffic, to push more to the east some of this traffic, to be able to offload the central part of Karlsruhe, eventually just leave traffic in the northeastern part of Karlsruhe, if not completely outside. And then also to help the southwest airspace of Romania, the central airspace of Hungary, and then further up Austria on one hand, or on the other hand Slovakia and Czech Republic, because there are severe difficulties now with the traffic density and complexity in the southwestern part of Romania and the central part of Hungary, that you might have seen translated in some delays last year.
Matis?
Here's a remark about the traffic forecast. Where it says the traffic forecast is wrong, too low, every year. Every NSP misses it. Every meeting I attend for many years, it's the same. Inaccurate results on staffing for actual traffic resulting in delays. So that's a bit on what Johnny, I think, mentioned. Also.
Yeah, this is a very general statement. I would like to know who made this statement actually, to see to see exactly how was the traffic forecast. This is a very, very defensive measure, defensive statement that I cannot accept. Nobody told to any ANSP that the traffic will decrease. And if the difference in the traffic forecast was 1%, that does not justify a severe reduction in the number of sectors open. So this statement, I cannot take it as being serious.
Okay, let's build on that one, but on a milder way. I say, what's the plan to solve the ATC staffing shortage issue? I think we have the plans in the NOP. I don't think it's for tomorrow, the day after. There is a more funny proposal there that maybe all the controls should be under EUROCONTROL employees, but let's answer the first one. Are there anywhere published the plans for the staffing in the coming years?
Yeah, the number of sectors available and the staff plans resulting from that, of course, will be available into the network operations plan. As I have mentioned, unfortunately, the situation is not going to come back to normal by 2024 because it's almost impossible to catch up with the lack of recruitment that happened as a result of the fact that the traffic forecast was 3% instead of 4%, if I can afford the joke. So not only it will not be possible to catch up with the current staff shortages, but it will not be possible to catch up with the traffic growth. And basically, in the last 3-4 editions of the NOP, we have strongly advised a large number of ANSPs to follow the high traffic forecast growth in operations. We have warned all the ANSPs at the start of RP2 on the same thing. We have warned PRB, we have warned the European Commission. The choice on the low forecast was wrong. And if this choice has been persistently followed individually by the ANSPs, that was not the advice given by NM. And even now, okay, we have to analyze the latest traffic forecast. We are not going to tell to people plan on the high forecast and when we will know that it will be just the low forecast. We are very, very accurate on that, and the accuracy of our statements is auditable.